You're listening to the Better for America podcast, presented by Amac, the Association of Mature American Citizens.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Weber, and this is your AMAC podcast, Better for America. Today, we are privileged to have with us one of the nation's leading experts on immigration law, border security, and immigrant gangs. She is Jessica Vaughan, a name likely familiar to many for her thoughtful writing and interviews. By way of refresher, Jessica has spent 30 years studying immigration patterns, trends, and impact, specifically with the highly respected Center for Immigration Studies. Her articles are not just instructive, but consistently raise important questions. She has also been a Foreign Service Officer with the State Department, and she has published across the spectrum in places like The Washington Post and The Economist. She is a graduate of Mary Washington and has a master's from Georgetown. In short, Jessica Vaughan is the real thing. So let's jump right in. Jessica, you really are someone who can help our membership understand what is happening and why it all matters. Our membership has been very concerned about illegal immigration, border security, rule of law, and public safety. And we're concerned it's tied to gang and drug crime. Specifically, we seem to be seeing a radical shift away from Trump policies. For example, Donald Trump pushed border security, while Biden is favoring an open border and a return to catch and release, in effect causing illegal immigration to skyrocket. Our 2 million plus members are concerned. So my question is, are AMAC members rightly concerned? And why, in your opinion, is President Biden making such a radical shift away from Trump's border security policies?
Well, I don't think your membership will be surprised to hear that gang members, both inside the country and in other countries, know our immigration laws better and understand how they operate better than most Americans do. They've understood that there was going to be this change in policies and that things would ease up at the border. So gang leaders in Central America in particular have decided to take advantage of it by sending recruits from communities in Central America where they've already been working for the gang typically, even though they are minors usually. Knowing that minors will be allowed in with few questions asked, they're sending them up to the U.S. border to work for gangs that are already established in certain communities in the United States. Places like the Washington, D.C. suburbs, Long Island, Florida, Atlanta, North Carolina, Houston, California, Boston. All of these places have seen a dramatic uptick in gang violence and gang activity, not to mention an influx of opioids as well. And the reason is that the gangs are taking advantage of our lax policies at the border and knowing that the Biden administration has deprioritized immigration enforcement in the interior. I've been following the violence and the arrests that have been made, and there is a disproportionate number of gang members being arrested who have crossed the border illegally, and many of them are minors. 30% of the MS-13 gang members arrested by ICE in recent years originally arrived here as unaccompanied minors. So these are not just all families seeking a better life or fleeing persecution or oppression. Many of these are criminal gang members seeing the United States as a place to make money and to bring about mayhem. And it's difficult because a lot of the recruiting and the activities taking place in and around schools and with vulnerable young people. And it's our law enforcement agencies that are left to pick up the pieces. So that's a very serious problem that the Biden administration is trying to pretty much sweep under the rug.
They sure are. They really are hoping that Americans are not paying attention, but boy, it's coming to us. And it's not just a border state issue. This is a nationwide crisis for sure. And our members, they respect rule of law. We grew up with borders that meant something. And so our members are deeply concerned for the future of America because beyond illegal immigration, human trafficking, gang violence. I'm concerned about the entry of illegal drugs. And last month's data shows a record number of illegal drugs crossing our borders, including killers like fentanyl. And I read that we had a 30% jump last year in overdose deaths, with a record high, I think, is it 93,000 deaths in 2020? So much of the problem is tied to drugs crossing our border, specifically heroin, cocaine, fentanyl, and other synthetics. So, Jessica, my question is, with a wave of illegal foreign-sourced drugs washing into our country, shouldn't the Biden administration be focused on law enforcement across the border to keep the drugs out of young Americans' hands, to prevent Americans from dying? This is a public safety, public health, national security issue itself. What is the attitude of the law enforcement officials along the border?
Well, law enforcement officials know very well.
That's a
loaded
how to question. Did I lose you? Go ahead.
No, law enforcement officials, both along the border and in the interior of the country, know very well what the connection is here. That most of the illicit drugs that are coming into our communities are coming over the southern border. And when the Border Patrol is distracted by having to deal with families and kids and this overwhelming number of people who are arriving now, that takes them off the line, as I call it, the border itself. And that means the criminal smuggling organizations can send in drugs and criminals who don't want to be caught by the border in while the Border Patrol is on diaper duty. So they get across, they spread out into communities around the country, unafraid, by the way, because they know that under Biden policies, they're only going to be subjected to immigration enforcement if they have committed and been convicted of a very serious crime. And they hide out in sanctuary jurisdictions where local law enforcement agencies are not allowed to cooperate with ICE for political reasons. So all of this provides sanctuary for criminal organizations to operate and make money and become stronger than ever. And they take advantage of this. And they're really hiding in plain sight in cover of immigrant communities who are the ones who also suffer from this influx of criminals as well. So, law enforcement agencies know that the best way to address this would be, first of all, to enforce our immigration laws, to remove people who are here committing crimes as a priority, to allow law enforcement agencies to talk to each other, to share information, and to not have sanctuary policies, but to stop this at the border as well, to prevent it from happening altogether. And none of that is happening now because of these really misguided ideologies that assume that immigration enforcement is somehow inherently racist or discriminatory, that we can absorb as many immigrants as want to come here and that it's our obligation to take them, that communities should, just put up with this and pay the price of it. I think they think that voters are not going to catch on to this. But people know what's happening in their community. They trust their local sheriffs, their local police departments to know how to do the right thing. They need to start pushing back against the federal policies and also against the sanctuary policies as well, if we're ever going to see a difference in this. But immigration enforcement is the best way to fight crime problems that are done where the perpetrators are illegal aliens. It's easy. We can send them home. We don't have to put up with them here. We have enough American criminals. We don't need to have non-citizen criminals causing problems as well.
Yeah, that is a great point. And I think that President Biden and Vice President Harris seem to not really understand the gravity, the real significance of the border. They do certainly seem to live in a bubble. And like him or hate him, Donald Trump understood. He certainly understood the long-term effects. He understood that we needed sanctity at our borders and we need to control illegal immigration. Harris talked of these root causes, but she seems to be missing some of the most important root causes. And I was kind of I guess I wasn't shocked, but when I saw the presidents of Guatemala and Mexico, they made it clear. They said it's the Biden administration policies. So Americans are quite rightfully confused, I think, scratching their heads thinking this isn't what we voted for if they did vote for Biden. And with Harris, did not take her job seriously when Biden put her in position to sort of act as the border czar. She never really went down to understand the gravity of the problem. One last question on why you think they're doing it, because it is just hard to believe that their ideology is that they don't just see the truth in front of them. Do you see this as a deflection from harder choices that they would have to make? In other words, is it so simple that they just did not like President Trump that much that they tried to do everything in their power to tell the American people that he had made bad choices? What do you think about that?
Well, I think there are a few things going on here. I think there may be some tension within the Biden administration, but clearly the open border zealots seem to have the upper hand, especially with someone like Kamala Harris in her position. They've bought into this narrative. In fact, they're the ones pushing this narrative that immigration enforcement is overzealous, and not that immigration laws should not be enforced, and that we can accommodate as many people who want to come here. They don't live in neighborhoods that are affected by this increase in crime. Their children are not going to schools that are dealing with gang problems. They don't know people who are in competition for jobs with recent illegal arrivals. But part of it also is political in the sense that they do know that more immigration will swell the population in certain parts of the country that are key voting districts for Democrats. And some Democratic politicians are actually open about this, and they say, look, they're going to be counted in the next census. And that's going to be helpful to Democratic candidates for the long term, because they will be able to win these districts by pandering to people who are advocates for illegal immigrants or apologists for illegal immigration or in denial about the effects of illegal immigration. They're going to benefit politically from this in several ways. So they don't have a problem with it. Whereas, I see it on the long term, this could really, well, in the short term, I think it's going to be problems for the Democrats in holding control of Congress in the next couple of years. Over the long term, though, I think that most Americans come to appreciate the importance of having an open legal immigration system, but one where the rules are enforced so that we have a system with some integrity where Americans, through our elected representatives, are choosing who will be immigrants to this great country, not the smuggling cartels and not, open borders politicians who allow this to happen, de facto without any changes in the law. So, there are ideological reasons and political reasons why certain Democrats want this to continue. But, Americans who voted for Biden thinking that he was going to have moderate immigration policies are starting to have some buyer's remorse, I think. And I think that going forward, they're going to see the consequences of this in their communities.
I agree with you there. One last area that seems almost overlooked, our members are very much aware, and it's a growing problem, and that is, we're wrestling with the Delta variant, right, on COVID, but more illegal aliens, asylum seekers, seem to be showing up infected with the Delta variant. And then, they're brought right into the heartland of America. How concerned should we be about the Biden administration's indifference to this rising health crisis where COVID is being imported along with illegal aliens, gangs, and drugs? And before you answer that, we put a poll up on our question, a poll question up on our website. And that question to our members is, what of the following statements, what most reflects your opinion? And a good percentage of AMAC members said, why is Joe Biden imposing strict mandates to wear masks and shutdowns and, sort of invoking fear in American people and completely turning a blind eye to the massive number of illegal migrants that are crossing our border, right? These are migrants crossing our border illegally, and really downplaying the fact that they're coming over COVID positive, unhealthy, sick, and entering into our systems, our school systems, and so forth. This is a rising health crisis. Where is this indifference coming from, in your opinion?
This is just outrageous hypocrisy on the part of the Biden administration to be, on the one hand, telling Americans that we need to suffer through all sorts of restrictions and job losses and children wearing masks to school and so on to prevent the spread of this disease, while with the other hand, they're allowing tens of thousands of migrants to enter on a weekly basis without any controls, without, first of all, much testing, although the Border Patrol sources that I speak with say that there has been something like a 30% positive rate among those migrants who have been tested. And what happens is they're allowed into the country, turned over to charities in the border areas, some of whom will test migrants or offer them vaccinations, but most of the time they simply tell them to go on their way to their community that is their destination. In one case, they've rented out a hotel in a border town, but then allowed the migrants to go wandering all around the town using restaurants and stores and so on. And it's not a coincidence that there have been spikes of illness in these border areas and also in the destinations where the migrants are arriving. They're riding on charter buses and airplanes and arriving in communities. There's no consultation with local or state officials about this. And many state leaders are starting to get very upset, like the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, the governor of South Carolina, Henry McMaster. They're starting to demand more information. And the Biden administration has simply clammed up and doesn't want to say not only how many migrants are being released, but what steps they have taken to make sure that they're not going to be spreading COVID as we go forward. So it's really outrageous. And this kind of disregard for American communities in favor of people who've arrived illegally, it should not be tolerated by us as citizens.
Yeah. And I want to turn to Cuba and the Cuban protesters, as well as those trying to flee communism. Biden seems okay with those fleeing poverty or just looking for a shortcut to the U.S. from Central America. But what about Cuba? What are your thoughts about Cuba and Biden's take on those that are fleeing communism?
Well, there's no question that Cuba has one of the most oppressive regimes in the world, and that there are people who are suffering because of their political opinions there. And those people are appropriate to be considered for asylum here. And our asylum system can accommodate them. The problem is that many people from Cuba are taking advantage of the lax border to basically use our unsecured southern border as a way of getting here to join friends and family. A lot of what I've seen when I visited the border and observed the entry of Cubans who were seeking asylum is that they were quite openly said that they had been living in South America, usually Venezuela or Brazil, sometimes Spain. And same with Haitians. They've been able to find safe haven in other countries and support themselves and their families quite comfortably. But when they heard that the Biden administration had changed our policies, they decided it was time to come to the United States because they thought the grass was greener here. So the administration needs to be careful. We want to offer safe haven to people who are genuinely oppressed or persecuted. That's appropriate. But that should not be kind of a pretext for anyone in the world who wants to come live here to come and be allowed to do so. We can't offer safe haven to everyone. We need to have some guidelines and apply it fairly and humanely, and expect other countries to share the burden of providing safety to people who are persecuted.
Thank you, Jessica. I do have one final question. You are the living expert in this area. So a question that I have that an AMAC member has for you is, if you were to speak to Joe Biden, sit right in front of President Biden, what message might you give him? And what do we really need to know? I mean, we spoke about, the wave of illegal immigration, catch and release, gangs and drugs. But on the basic level, on a very basic level, we need to know why borders matter. And I want to hear from you, really tell us, what message would you give to President Biden if he called upon you for advice on which way to go?
I guess I'd say, come on, man, borders matter. I would say that immigration laws are important, and that he needs to read some of Barbara Jordan's writings, a great civil rights leader from Texas, who chaired a commission in the 1990s that found that our immigration law is simple. Those that we want to admit should get in. Those who don't get in, we have to say no to, who don't qualify. And those who get in without permission need to be sent back. That immigration laws are there for a reason. They help Americans. Our immigration policy should be in our national interest, and that he needs to learn how to say no to the more extreme elements in his administration and in Congress to do something for the American people who want our immigration laws enforced.
Well, let's hope that he gets that message somehow, because this is just really a shameful, complete disregard for Americans, for lawful, law-abiding Americans that are doing everything right, that are trying hard to raise a family. And it is a very, very disturbing situation, Jessica. I do think that this will catch up with the Democrats, with the Biden administration, and anybody who's aligned themselves with this crazy open border policy. Jessica, I want to thank you so much for your insights, for your expertise, and your willingness to give AMAC members your valuable time. You have shed a lot of real light, and we're so grateful for that. And I just want to say to people who are listening out there, if you have not already heard about the AMAC News app, listen to me closely. You get all of these podcasts and great articles, lots of news that you will not find anywhere else, on your smartphone. It's real simple. If you have an iPhone or an iPad, tap on the App Store. And if you're an Android user, tap on Google Play. And just choose search and type in AMAC, that's AMAC, and you'll see the AMAC News app listed as an option. You just tap Get, and the app will download directly to your phone or your device. It's so simple. There's no cost. We don't take personal information. We don't even take an email address, and you get the real news. So I just want to remind people to download the AMAC News app and all kinds of podcasts that we have coming up. I want to thank everybody today for tuning in. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button and follow, like, or share wherever you are on social media. Until next time, I'm Rebecca Weber, and this is your AMAC podcast, Better for America. Thank you for being here. God bless you, and until next time, have a great day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Better for America podcast. To learn more about AMAC and all it has to offer, visit us at www.amac.us.